Good evening and welcome to the organizational meeting of Strathmore Town Council. It's being held on November 4th, 2020 at 7:04 p.m. And we're going to do something a little different at the very start of the meeting before we start the committees and organization as far as seating and meeting agenda. We have here tonight invited the managers of Tim Hortons. And we're going to have a check presentation concerning the Smile Cookie program, which supports local charities and service groups, the FCSS. So at this time, I'll get Jennifer to bring the folks in.
This is where we have to leave, right?
I didn't mean to be insulting to you, Mr. Mayor.
That's okay.
I just thought you were taunting me.
No,
as usual.
you're still welcome to the photo, though. Good evening and welcome, and if we could get you folks to maybe kind of come in here, try to give yourselves some physical distancing so we can protect you all, and then we'll still have that check presentation as well. We want to thank Tim Hortons, the owners of Tim Hortons, for their work this year in the Smile program, the Smile Cookie program. If I can, yes, we have an amount, a check for the town of Strathmore FCSS, for $12,261.50. And just a reminder to the public who are at home, we're thrilled to have Tim Hortons do this for our community. Every dollar of every cookie sold stays right in our community. So it's an amazing program. And I think you were saying, what was the amount that you had over?
So this is the fourth year of using FCSS as our local charity, and the total is over $37,000 in 4 years.
Okay, so if the folks at home didn't hear that, in the past 4 years, over $37,000 has been raised by the Tim Hortons Smile Cookie Program in town. So we'll do the formal check presentation, and we'll have the paparazzi here to take photos of everybody.
All right, that's my cue.
Mine too.
To move.
Sorry.
Okay, how do you want us, Jennifer? I'll go in the middle, maybe?
I think it's amazing. That could be the first one to say it'll cover up Lenny's face.
Yeah, for sure.
You got it.
Everyone say cookie.
Everybody smile. Thank you very much for this. Oh, the official one too. Thank you very much. On behalf of the town of Strathmore, my fellow councillors and FCSS, thank you for all your work. And it's just amazing. It's amazing that all the money stays in our town. So.
And you know what, your worship, in FCSS this year, with COVID, they have been able to provide additional food security, emergent food security, and they've been able to provide housing for people who've come through town and haven't been able to afford overnight stays or something, because they run into some kind of an issue. And just the difference that it's made in the lives of people, having that amount of money to be able to carry people over in the very worst times of their life is something else. And the fact that you've done it 4 years running is nothing short of remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much for that. We're happy to be local, and
It's wonderful.
we feel good about the cause as well.
I've even been trying to work on them to relocate to Strathmore from I'm always trying to promote the town. Actually, we'll give you guys this back.
No, I think that should be the first one to hang in the town office.
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome. Well, thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you so much.
for all you do.
Thank you for choosing FCSS too. It's much
Thanks for having
appreciated.
us. And Lorraine's not here, but she would thank you.
So welcome back to the organizational meeting for Town Council. At this time, I'd like to confirm the agenda. Are there any changes or additions, anything? This is strictly a procedural meeting to work out seating arrangements, council meeting schedules, other things. So I'm looking for a motion to confirm the agenda as presented.
Your worship, we had one thing that Councillor Montgomery wanted to add to the agenda, I believe.
I think that comes in our next one, because this is a separate meeting to the public one. So we'll come back to that, thank you. That's good that you remembered that, though. So looking for a motion, Councillor Cox.
I move we accept the agenda, or confirm the agenda.
Thank you very much. We have a motion on the floor to confirm the agenda as presented. All in favor? And that motion is carried. We have nothing to discuss in camera. We have no presentations or recognitions, no delegations, no consent agenda, no. Confirmation of minutes, no. Table items, no. Which brings us to items, reports from administration. And the first one, Deborah Hamrick. Are you speaking to, or is Jennifer? Thought I'd get you there, Deb.
Thank you, Worship. So it's council's organizational meeting. We do this annually. There's 4 matters that we deal with annually. The first is council seating arrangement. Council seating arrangement looks quite different right now from what it normally is, but we need to confirm where everyone wants to sit for the next year.
Councillor Montgomery?
I will move that everybody sit wherever is convenient at that particular meeting.
Can we do that?
I'm not quite sure that was the motion she was looking for.
Oh, but look at his face.
Can I ask a question?
Full
Your
mask.
Worship?
Oh, we have a question from Councillor Cox before we possibly have a different motion.
We're making a seating arrangement of the seats. We have no idea what they look like.
So, Your Worship, so it would be different from last year's seating arrangement. So last year, we had Councillor Sobel, Councillor Bauer, Councillor Montgomery, the mayor, Councillor Corbeil, and then Councillor Peterson and Councillor Cox. So we can change that order. Now, the new building, your desk looks exactly the same. Yeah, and also if council does want a different seating arrangement, we can draw for spots, just to make it fun.
Councillor Sobel.
I will withdraw my motion.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor, and the motion is carried. Which brings us to 9.2, the 2021 council meeting schedule, which is on page 6. And Jennifer wanted to just point out that in January of 2021, there are only 2 council meetings in that month. The 6th will not be a council meeting. August is typically a month where it's much slower. No council meetings occur in that. And I think people will find that that's pretty consistent all through this area, City of Calgary, various cities and towns. So, looking for a motion concerning that. And then if you have any questions, I guess, before a motion, you could get some clarification. Jennifer?
Your Worship, just one more thing to point out. Next October is our election. So we've taken out the committee of the whole meeting for that month because it just doesn't make sense to have one so close to the election. And then we've also included 2 dates for our first series for council orientation, and moved the last council meeting and that would be the organizational meeting, to the 27th.
Thank you for that clarification. So then I'm looking for a motion to approve the schedule. Councillor Corbeil.
Move the council approve the 2021 council meeting schedule as presented.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor? And that motion is carried. Which brings us to council committee appointments. And before we look at motions coming through, again, Jennifer has pointed out that we can do a motion to consider all the committees as presented, so you'll find them on page 9 of 11. The only change that you will find is when you see Councillor Lorraine Bauer in light blue, Pastor Elizabeth Karp, who I believe is I'm not sure, she's not the chair, but she's the executive director of the Strathmore Overnight Shelter. We received a letter from her expressing the idea that they no longer require a Strathmore Town Councillor to be on their Overnight Shelter Board. So that is one that could be removed from the list.
Your worship, might I speak to that?
Sure, Councillor
Just
Peterson.
to speak to that, what actually happened was that the annual general meeting made a definitive decision that they were an operations board and not a governance board, and therefore governance bodies that sat on there, which were Siksika and Strathmore, were no longer sitting on there as governance people. So that's what it was about. The other thing I'd just like to point out, your worship, is that the tourism committee is no longer. That was absorbed. I'm correct in saying that. And the other thing, and I don't know whether it was a committee of council, I was assigned by council, but that was to the arts committee of the town hall. And I really, your worship, feel that the contribution that I could make to that came through gathering persons that could come together to do the kind of consultation that was required for the administration that was working toward that. But Councillor Bauer had indicated to me some time ago that she would be very interested in working further to that if there were other arts considerations within the building and within the garden part of the building. And I don't know if that's even a continued or if it's done. So just for clarification.
Yeah, Your Worship, I can speak to that. So the arts kind of committee was an internal committee made up of administration, council, and some community members. It's not an official council committee because we haven't adopted a terms of reference in our procedure bylaw. So that could happen kind of beyond this process, or apart from this process.
Sorry, I haven't done that since 2017. There was also a request from Councillor Sobel, I believe.
So, Your Worship, I've been a member of the Sustainability Committee since its beginnings. And at present, we have myself and Councillor Montgomery. The terms of reference calls for two councillors to be on that committee. I'm making a request to withdraw from that committee and to have the terms of reference. They would have to be changed. My suggestion is that we only need the one councillor on that committee. I think it's a little heavy to have two members on that.
So to crack about his weight. Before we go on, as far as a motion, question, is the Recreation Facility Development Committee, I know they came up with a master plan, has that fulfilled its commitments?
Yes, Your Worship.
Okay, so that committee is no longer in existence. And then just a quick question for Councillor Montgomery. Based on the AGM of the handy bus, could this possibly be coming back to us as a committee concept, or will it stay as is?
Like, do you mean if we'll have a council member on there?
Yeah, I was just a little confused on that.
Yeah, so I would recommend just council having a member on there for as long as the town is, providing us fairly substantial grant to the organization.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cox?
Can I just ask a question? Administratively, it's with respect to the Strathmore Overnight Shelter requesting that we aren't on there anymore. I just want to know, is there any other committees that or groups that we lend money to that we don't sit on? Like, because we've lent the Strathmore Overnight Shelter money, should we have a say on their board? I'm just not sure.
So, Your Worship, there are other groups that council does. Council just approved a motion tonight for Growing Families to give them funds. So, so it's not a consistent process where a council member is appointed to a board just because we give them
But some of them have been completely separate entities that we've just contributed funds to. We've never really explored the opportunity to have a member on any kind of a board for some groups. Or been invited, yeah.
Councillor Cox, can I respond to that, Your Worship? Sure. Councillor Cox makes a good point, because when the reason that we wound up with a member on the Strathmore Overnight Shelter was because of a motion that came, I believe, from Councillor Graychuk or Councillor Sobel back in the day in 2015 or 16 to match funds. I think we gave them $60,000 and we would match any donations up to a 30, I can't remember what the amount was. And because the shelter at the time, the overnight shelter at the time was a new entity, and they came under some scrutiny from the community. So the shelter then asked for a member of the town council to sit on the overnight shelter board until that money was expended according to the guidelines that were set out. And so that was fulfilled some time ago.
Thank you for that clarification. So Jennifer, when we go to have a motion for the committees, can we just refer to page 9 of 11 with just a recap that we will strike out the Recreation Facility Development Committee? We will remove the suggestion is Councillor Bob Sobel would no longer be on the Sustainability Committee. Councillor Lorraine Bauer, because the overnight shelter is not requesting a councillor for that, we would strike that. And then Councillor Corbeil, like myself, we would strike the Recreation Facility Development Committee, and then Councillor Denise Peterson, the Tourism Committee. Does that make sense? And then we can just refer to committees on which councillors sit that are referenced on page 9 of 11. Okay, councillors, are you okay with that? And Councillor Sobel?
Question, do we need a motion to have terms of reference for sustainability come back?
Your worship, we're reviewing the procedural bylaw right now anyway, so we'll bring back that change. Do not need a motion.
So based on that, is any councillor prepared to make a motion?
Sure, Your Worship, I would move that we approve the committees on which council sit as per page 9 of 11 of the agenda, to move that as amended.
Thank you very much. We have a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion of Councillor Peterson's motion? Councillor Montgomery?
I'm just wondering, procedurally, like since Councillor Bauer isn't here to kind of speak to what committees she would like to be on or what have you, is it possible, like let's say at the next meeting we could revise that? Okay.
Your worship, we can bring this back, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we have that motion on the floor. All in favor? And that motion is carried. Oh, opposed?
No, sorry,
Oh.
what motion are we voting on? His two.
No. Councillor,
That she's
Council-
okay when she comes back to ask.
It's that Councillor Bauer will have, just a point of order, that Councillor Bauer will have input.
Thank you.
so we have Councillor Peterson's motion. All in favor? And that motion is carried.
Sorry.
Which brings us to council committee appointments, public members, which is found on page 10 of 11. And Jennifer, you're speaking to this as well?
Yes, Your Worship, just briefly, the nomination committee met earlier this month to discuss a number of applications that have been received by members of the public to sit on council's committees. A list of the recommendations that the committee is making is on page 11 of your agenda, and administration is recommending that council that council appoint the members as presented.
Thank you very much for that report. Councillors, are you comfortable with what you've heard and what you've seen on that agenda page? Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you. I will move the council accept the recommendations for committee appointments from the nomination committee as presented and appoints members of the public to the council committees as follows on the next page, effective November 1st, 2020 to October 31st, 2021. And if I might, I just wanted to remind members of the public that we do have a number of committees ranging from sustainability to the seniors advisory to like even the library board. There is many committees in our town that could use more volunteers, and so if there's something that you're passionate about and would like to be involved, please either come to the town webpage or do some or contact one of us, and we can help direct you in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Montgomery. Jennifer?
Your Worship, just for the public's interest, council may want to list the individuals appointed to the committees.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Montgomery, would you like to read the members in your dulcet tones? Your soothing bedtime story tone?
Okay, is that making me more nasally or less? For the Assessment Review Board, we have Debbie Enslin, Debbie Mitzner, Serindy Morgan, and J.C. Rabke. For the Financial Audit Committee, we have Brand Beekman and Joel Chiasson. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. Chason, so I definitely did. Library Board, Jeff Ball, Tora Fox Walker, Gary Jensen, and David Seymour. And we just appointed Ruth McCluskey as well. Okay, so I'll include Ruth McCluskey in there as well. And then the Subdivision Development Appeal Board, we have Ian Anderson, Serindy Morgan, Debbie Enslin, Haley Poirier, and Josh Brecht. And then for the Seniors Advisory Board, we have Lynn Fair, Steve Fry, Teresa Stark, and Linda Storkson. Sustainability Committee, we have Carly McIsaac, Rob Peary, Oksana Tracy, I hope I pronounced that right. Tracy, sorry Oksana, and Shelby Sherwick. And then for the Traffic Advisory Committee, we have Anthony Alexic, Rob Peary, Todd Thompson, and Brian Cunningham.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you to all the people that have volunteered so far.
Thanks for that. So we have that motion on the floor to accept those public members. All in favor? And the motion is carried. And again, thank you to all those public members who are giving up some valuable private time to do some valuable work for the public and for the town of Strathmore. Item 10, we have no committee reports. 11, no items directly related to council, no bylaws, no urgent business, and no questions between councillors and council statements in this meeting. And administrative inquiries, no. So that brings us to, we need a motion of adjournment for this special organizational meeting of council. Councillor Corbeil.
I move to adjourn this special council meeting.
Thank you. We have a motion to adjourn the organizational meeting. All in favor? And the motion is carried. To the public meeting for November 4th, 2020. And Jennifer, I do need to do an amendment to the agenda, or are we going to confirm this agenda separately?
Sorry, Your Worship, this is a new meeting, so we need to confirm this agenda separately.
Thank you. So at this time, I'm looking to confirm the agenda. Are there any emergent items from councillors at this point? Councillor Montgomery, I believe you had one.
No, so actually that can fit in apparently with something else. So I will move the agenda as presented.
Okay, we just need to double check with administration. Do you have any emergent items?
Oh,
Your
sorry.
Worship, we do have an urgent item. It's for first reading of a land use bylaw amendment. The reason that the item is urgent is because we have individuals in the community waiting upon this decision for financial reasons. So we're asking that council include it tonight.
Under urgent business?
Yeah, it'll be 13.1. So Councillor Montgomery, would you be willing and able to confirm the agenda as amended?
Yes, I will move we confirm the agenda as amended.
Thank you for your motion. You've all heard that motion. All in favor? And that motion is carried. And we're going in camera later, Mr. Legore?
To Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
Thank you very much. Okay, so that brings us to item 4, presentations, recognitions. We've done that. That was the check presentation from Tim Hortons, deja vu. Item 5, we have no delegations, no consent agenda, which brings us to 7.1, the adoption of the October 21st, 2020 regular council meeting minutes. Oh, Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move the council adopt the October 21st, 2020 regular council meeting minutes as presented.
Thank you very much. We have a motion on the floor for that. All in favor? And that motion is carried. I don't know why I didn't see you. We have no tabled items, and that brings us to items, reports from administration. And for those of you at home who tuned in for the budget meetings, this item is 9.1, the 2021 corporate plan and budgets. It's directly tied to the budget meeting we had prior to the public meeting. And again, for those at home, we've had quite a few budget meetings throughout the summer, throughout May and parts of the summer, where we've gone through the corporate plan and looked ahead into the future. And then tonight's budget meeting, we got a very, very well-done report from our administration team. And now we're looking to possibly approve the budget for 2021. So, Mr. Titi, are you speaking first? Or is Jennifer?
Thank you, Your Worship. Administration is happy to present Council with the 2021 Corporate Business Plan, which includes the operating budget and the capital budget for 2021. This year, administration took an approach to the budget and to this corporate business plan as a time for some change. We've designated 2021 as a reframing year for the town of Strathmore due to the pressures resulting from our struggling economy in Alberta and from the impacts of COVID-19. So we evaluated our core services and restructured the budget process in 2020. And the outcome of that was a budget process that supported council's priorities while creatively finding ways to provide utmost services to the residents of Strathmore.
So as you can see from this slide, we are presenting a balanced budget. For 2021, we have revenues of $31.6 million and expenses of $34.7 million. We have 3 balancing items, net transfer for expenses of $36,000, debt repayments, and an add back of our amortization. One thing to note again is that we are transferring $223,000 from our financial stabilization reserve to balance the budget. The next slide we have is revenue. So we have a projected revenue increase of 4%. This is due to an increase in government transfers for operating. So this includes our new MOST grant and our MSI grants. We have an increase built in for utilities and for franchise fees. We'd like you to note that there is a 0% tax increase in this budget. Yeah, 0% tax increase. Yeah. Yeah. The next slide is our operating expenses. We have a 2% increase. 3.7 million is our operating expense budget. We have an increase in contracted services of about 5%, but we have a decrease in salaries of 4%. So that is the main part of our operating expenses.
Your Worship, some of the highlights out of the operational budget that informed the numbers that you just heard included a response to COVID-19. So we've included changes in our operational standards and procedures that must meet provincial and federal guidelines for operating during a pandemic. We've also incorporated operational efficiencies, and this is reflective of the changes that we've made in our staffing levels. We've gone from 152.19 FTEs to 134.33 FTEs. Also included in the operating budget is what Lisa had just mentioned, which is the stimulus funding. We've used that MOST program funding to balance our budget, to assist in balancing our budget. There are a number of capital projects as well for 2021 included in our corporate plan. Just to highlight a few, we have the Strathmore Lakes Pond Outfall, the Westridge Road project, the Family Center and Aquatic Center roof repairs and replacement, the ramp program, and pathway construction.
For our capital budget, we are spending $7.5 million. Our funding includes a $1.6 million grant from the Alberta government called the Municipal Stimulus Program, and we're using this to repair our roofs for the Family Aquatic Center and repair our roads, Thistleway and George Freeman Trail.
Okay. So just to reiterate, the impact that our budget, the operating and capital budget will have on Strathmore citizens, again, is a 0% property tax increase. We do have an increase in our natural gas franchise fee, and that's an average increase of $230 per month. And also an increase in our utility fees and levy, which is approximately which is $288 a month for the utility fee and $150 a month for the utility levy. And with that, Your Worship, we're requesting that Council approve the 2021 to 2023 corporate business plan as presented, as well as approve the operating budget and capital budget and the long-term financial plan this evening.
Thank you for your report, and again, thank you to your team for all the work that you've done in this tough economic situation. I think our residents are going to be well served by the fact that while this council may be dealing with a lot of challenges, we have still worked hard to bring forward a budget and a plan into the future that is going to be good for the town residents. So to reassure the people at home, we've worked on this for many, many hours. It may look like we're possibly approving this quickly tonight, but we have been working on this for quite some time. Councillor Cox.
So I just wanted to make a couple points for the public. We referred to FTEs, which stands for full-time equivalents or employees. So basically, we decreased by 17, approximately 17 employees. The other thing I wanted to reiterate was franchise fees. Could you go back to that screen for me? Oh, so the natural gas franchise fees, for those of you that weren't here for our budget meeting and didn't see it, are fees that the town of Strathmore can collect from the non-taxable, am I saying this correctly? Mr. TD, would you like to say it for the public so that we get it right?
One of the reasons that we've included an increase to the franchise fee is for the property owners that are tax exempt, which include primarily provincial government bodies such as schools, the seniors lodge, and the hospital all pay no taxes. So we've included this franchise fee increase in a way to offset some of the cost of servicing those organizations. While this fee is paid by all in the community, the property exempt owners pay no taxes, and this is the only fees that they would pay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. So does Councillor Peterson?
I'm ready for the motion, Your Worship,
Thank you.
if it comes back up. Otherwise, I might be, I have to go. Thank you, Your Worship. I would move that council approve the 2021 to 2023 Town of Strathmore Corporate Business Plan as presented, and the council approve the 2021 to 2023 operating budget as presented, and the council approve the 2021 to 2025 capital budget as presented, and the council approve the 2021 long-term financial plan as amended.
Thank you very much for that motion. Are there any comments about the motion or any discussion?
I'd just like to recognize and thank our administrative staff, Your Worship, and cooperation of council for this very good work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Corbeil?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to point out that just because we are doing it from 2021 to 2023, that doesn't mean we're tying hands of future councils. We are just we are presented with today. That doesn't mean it can't be changed in the future.
Thank you for that. So we have that motion on the floor. All in favor? And the motion is carried. Which brings us to item 10, committee reports. 10.1, reports from councillors from committees in which they sit. Councillor Peterson?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have a very brief note. I sent out a message to council about the collaborative communicative survey for Wheatland Housing Management Body that Councillor Cox and I sit on. And the last consultation happens tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. That can be accessed. I believe there is a link on our town site to that link so that people can have their say about about what they would like to see in a new seniors lodge in our community. And thank you, that's all.
Thank you very much for that. Any other reports from committees, councillors? No? Thank you. Motion to accept as information? Oh, Councillor Montgomery.
I just wanted to make one more comment, and that is that the Strathmore Handy Bus Association will be having their annual general meeting on Monday, November 9th at the Wheatland County Municipality Office, if that's what it is. And with that, I will move that council accept these reports for information.
Thank you very much for that addition, and thank you for your motion. You've all heard the motion. All in favor? And that motion is carried. That brings us to 11.1, items directly related to council. 11.1, notice of motion, Councillor Peterson.
So I have a question for Legislative Services. It's not necessary for me to read this into the record, is it, at this point? So this is just a notice of motion, Your Worship, for consideration for an upcoming meeting that where Legislative Services sees fit to place it. I'm assuming November 18th. Thank you. And so this is an opportunity for our council to continue the good work that's been done by Town of Strathmore and the Siksika Nation on working towards our anti-racism goals. And this is a project by which a coalition of municipalities come together to work on issues around inclusivity and anti-racism and other such undertakings, and it also has a link to the Canadian Commission to UNESCO. So, and for that part of that is actually only that it does give access to communities to really current research. And that's all I have, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. So this will be coming to our next council meeting then. Thank you, Jennifer. And thank you, Councillor Peterson, for bringing that forward. And that brings us to 12 bylaws. 12.1, bylaw number 20-22, Lakewood Meadows Area Structure Plan Amendment Bylaw. Cameron, welcome this evening. Thank you for your report. Maybe it was brief, but we have read your information and it was very well done. So we're we're in full understanding of what's going on. So are any councillors prepared to make a motion? Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Your Worship. The council give first reading to bylaw number 20-22, being a bylaw to amend the Lakewood Meadows Area Structure Plan, and that council schedule the public hearing bylaw for bylaw number 20-22 for December 2nd, 2020.
Thank you very much for that motion. You've all heard the motion. Is there any more discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor? And the motion is carried. Which, thank you very much, Cameron, and you're staying around for the next one. 13.1, urgent business, bylaw number 20-24, and welcome back.
and staff are here this evening to recommend council give bylaw 20-24 first reading, and the council schedule a public hearing for December 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you, Cameron, for your report and bringing clarity to the issue for us. Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Your Worship. Can I ask a question regarding the R3 high density? By us doing this, are we creating it where it can't then become an apartment building in the future, or is it still safe to become a?
Yeah, so that's a good question through the chair. So what we did.
Thank you. Good question, Councillor Cox, and thanks for the clarification. Are any councillors prepared to make a motion? Councillor Sobel.
Sure, Your Worship. I'd move that council give first reading to bylaw number 20-24 being a bylaw to amend the land use bylaw, and that council schedule a public hearing for bylaw number 20-24 for December the 2nd, 2020.
Thank you for that motion. You've all heard the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? And that motion. Cameron, have a good evening. Item 14, questions between councillors and or council statements. Councillor Sobel?
Thank you, Your Worship. I know everybody was anxious to get out of here early, and so I'm going to apologize in advance for the length of this statement. This council is regulated by a number of different policies, bylaws, and provincial statutes, primarily the Municipal Government Act. Our policies and bylaws are regulations passed by present and past councils. In this particular term of office, which began in 2017, I have lost track of the amount of times that some of our policies or bylaws have been violated, often because of a lack of knowledge or because of willful disregard. This is not to say that the infractions are always ignored. They are simply and most often dealt with by administration or our mayor by education or counseling. If we would have brought each infraction witnessed in the last 3 years to official investigation, this municipality would probably be broke. In the 3 years this council has been in office, only once did an infraction call for an formal investigation. On March 4th, by a vote of 6-1, council authorized a formal investigation be conducted against Councillor Cox for alleged breaches of the town's code of conduct. Pursuant to the Municipal Government Act, there are only a number of ramifications or penalties available to dispense upon a member of council being found in violation of the code of conduct, as follows. A letter of reprimand addressed to the councillor. B, requesting the councillor issue a letter of apology. C, publication of a letter of reprimand or request for apology and the councillor's response. D, a requirement to attend training. E, suspension or removal of the appointment of a councillor as the chief elected official. F, suspension or removal of the appointment of a council as the deputy chief elected official. G, suspension or removal of the chief elected official's presiding duties. H, suspension or removal from some or all of council committees and bodies to which council has the right to appoint members. And lastly, I, reduction or suspension of remuneration, which would only correspond to the reduction in duties, excluding allowances for attendance at council meetings. In the case of the one previous code of conduct investigation, council voted to have a letter of reprimand issued by the mayor. The allegations focused on Councillor Cox's improper interactions and conversations with staff members, violating Section 6.2 of the Strathmore Bylaw 18-19 and Section 153D of the Provincial Municipal Government Act section. The ramifications of these sections were substantial. I bring this information to a public forum for a specific reason. In my opinion, to initiate formal proceedings under the Code of Conduct, the circumstances should be such that the expenses needed for a proper and thorough investigation are justified. This was deemed to be the case in regards to Councillor Cox. I must question whether the allegations that Councillor Montgomery brings against Councillor Peterson justify an expense which will easily exceed $15,000. When one looks at these allegations, one should ask what the ramifications were. According to a number of our residents who are following these proceedings closely, it would appear that the main result of these actions were some hurt feelings on the part of a councillor. Personally, I do not support an expenditure of this level to deal with, as another resident suggested, fragile emotions. I would add that I also do not support the matter being investigated by council itself. Contrary to Councillor Montgomery's belief, this is not an open and shut case, and the biases that exist amongst council members should prohibit this council from conducting a fair and just investigation. Equally, I'm convinced that mediation or private council discussion would not move our council any closer to a resolution. I'm convinced that this council can continue to conduct the affairs of this municipality successfully for the rest of this term, but only if we remain in the public eye as much as possible, and only if we stop focusing on our hurt feelings. On September 2nd, I brought forward circumstances of a councillor incident that occurred on July 22nd of this year. My allegation, which I also found to be extremely, quote, open and shut, unquote, in regards to validity, suggested Councillor Montgomery was untruthful in his efforts to move an item from the public forum into an in-camera one. I continue to be convinced that his actions were in violation of our code of conduct. I was not, however, prepared to request a formal investigation at the cost of $15,000 plus, although I believe my allegation would have been supported. My action was to request an apology from the councillor, something that has not been provided to date. Nevertheless, this could possibly have been the same result had a formal investigation taken place. My request tonight is simple and directed to Councillor Montgomery. Please consider abandoning this quest for personal satisfaction and withdraw the motion that deals with this matter. Councillor Montgomery, in his closing remarks on this motion last week, stated he was dismayed that this is where this has come to, that he felt it was totally unnecessary, and that he was disturbed that it had come to this. He wanted to get back to working for the community as hard as he could. I would say that the matter is totally in his control. He has the ability to make a motion to withdraw his allegations, which I describe as petty and inconsequential. We do not have this type of money to throw around on a matter such as this, and I'm convinced that our citizens expect more from us. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you for that. Jennifer, procedurally, that's just a council statement. Is there opportunity, there's no opportunity for comments back, or? I just want to make sure I'm following the absolute correct procedure.
Your Worship, the purpose of council statements is that any councillor can provide a statement. It does not have to be included on the council agenda.
Okay, thank you. So then we can move on to the next item? Okay. Item 15.
Your Worship, if I might respond to that. And I'll respond briefly, I guess, and just kind of touch on a couple of the points, because I was not at all prepared to make a statement. This is not about hurt feelings. This is about members of council bullying, threatening, and intimidating other members of council in order to sway council members away from or towards acting on certain issues. I am not only representing my own grievances, but the treatment that I have seen levied against other council members whom I have spoken to and asked if they would consider withdrawing my motion to investigate this, and they have refused. My fellow councillors whom I asked to investigate this, whom I asked to rule on whether or not they felt they had been bullied, would have done so. And while anybody who's been bullied is going to be biased against the bully, that doesn't mean that they are unable to assess whether or not they've been bullied. They can also assess whether or not they've felt threatened, intimidated. And so to suggest that this is about hurt feelings is, I'm assuming it's by people who do not have all the facts. And while I can't get into the specific incidences because they were in camera or in private meetings, I witnessed other members of council being threatened, and I could not stand by and watch that any longer. I tried to resolve this privately several times, but as Councillor Peterson has pointed out, those were fruitless because of the fact that some members of council are unable to or unwilling to admit when they have been wrong. or mistreated other people. This could have been resolved with a simple apology, but it was refused. This is not the way a council should function. This is not the way any professional organization or professional people should function or operate.
You're starting to intimidate me.
I'm,
Just saying, I'm being intimidated right now.
you know what, I'm glad you said that, because there's nothing at all intimidating or threatening about what I'm doing. I'm not threatening for you to be sued. I'm not telling you that you're going to jail for simply partaking in a meeting. I'm not standing up and yelling. I'm not pounding on a desk as you and Councillor Peterson did.
Okay, let's not get into specifics, because at this point, we have a motion that was passed, and we're going to have, at this point, we've approved to have a third-party investigation. So, we can go back and argue, and I don't think it's gonna get us anywhere. I think council agreed last time, or recently, to hire a third-party investigation group. I know the public is not thrilled with that idea, but that's what we passed. So, Mr. Legore, will you be coming forward to us with some recommendations or choices that we can consider to investigate this?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we will bring you a list of possible people that council could approve for the third-party investigation.
Okay, thank you, and I don't mean to interrupt either of you two councillors, but we had a motion that was passed, and we've agreed to bring it forward to be investigated. So
Your
we'll-
worship, I have a very short statement I'd like to make, just in response. It's very short.
Okay, we'll do that.
I just want to say, your worship, I have not followed this on Facebook. I have not given it any time or particular consideration. And I do agree, with Councillor Sobel, in as much as I spoke for the right to have a third-party investigation. I want to assure everyone that listens that this is a story that has yet to unfold. And there are many facets to it. And in my opinion, I believe that the allegations are seriously a reality-challenged narrative. And so I am grateful that the story will unfold. And I am fully prepared for that, although I think that it is a great waste of time and money and energy. And in the 40 organizations plus that I have sat in on this town, in this community, on governance boards, I have never run into the like of Councillor Montgomery. And I have never had such the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. And so, as I said before, I will stand on the record that I have in this community for nearly 4 decades. And I am saddened by a reality challenge narrative, Your Worship, but I'm glad that we're moving forward.
If I might respond to that. I urge any members of the public who might question whether this is reality challenged to contact former members of council who have served in the past several terms and inquire about what type of treatment they received from the other fellow members of council. That's all. Thank you.
Well, we have a motion that was carried to bring a third-party investigation in, and we look forward to getting some choices to consider. And we'll move on to 15. 15.1, administrative inquiry response for Councillor Montgomery. Councillor Montgomery, Deborah, is that you? No, Jennifer?
Thank you, Your Worship. Your Worship, there's a response, to Councillor Montgomery's administrative inquiry regarding the fire department. So it's in there for council's information, but we also do have an additional administrative inquiry. It's from Councillor, are there any questions about the fire department?
No, thank you.
So then the new inquiry from Councillor Peterson is in regard to the handy bus, and it reads, there's 8 questions. The first is the handy bus separating from the town? 2, does the handy bus have enough money to run the program without the support of the town? Will they have enough money to keep them in operation in the future? 3, what is the plan for the future of the handy bus in our town? 4, has the town of Strathmore asked the handy bus board to take over the town's responsibilities to the handy bus? Why? 5, is it true that the handy bus has no say in what is going on regarding the running and management of the handy bus board? Why? 6, did the town fire handy bus staff? Why? 7, what are the rates charged by the town to the handy bus? Are the fees the town charges exorbitant? And 8, did the handy bus make a motion or have a consensus to pay rent and staffing in a different building?
Thank you for that, and we look forward to the responses later. And that brings us to item 16, adjournment. Looking for a motion to... Oh, sorry, we have it in camera, sorry. Motion to go in camera.
So move, your worship.
We have a motion to go in camera from Councillor Peterson at 8 o'clock. All in favor? And the motion is carried. We're now in camera.